showing up authentically to who we are means dropping all of those stories, that narrative, that negative belief system, and saying, okay, this is me today, right now. And this is what I need today, right now.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. I am so excited for my new best friend, Alyssa. She is here to talk to us about self-care. Don't roll your eyes yet. Self-care is so many things. And I know we've really been inundated that self-care is like making a pretty package on the inside. Doesn't matter how bad you feel on the on the inside. Let's just look pretty today. And looking pretty is great. Don't not do that if you want. But self-care is so much more. What is that self-compassion? Are you being authentic? How are you choosing to treat yourself? Do you have boundaries that make sure that you know how you're going to respond when something happens? So there's so much more to self-care than just looking pretty. And so Alyssa's going to help us with that. But before we jump into the episode, we're going to get a quick word from our sponsor, come back, and we will find out what is self-care and how can I do this to make me happy. So we'll be right back. Hey, since I rarely have openings in my coaching schedule, I have a new resource out there on my website. It is called the BFF Coaching Network. And I have offered a spot there for any coach that has been on the show to list the coaching. You can go out there, you can listen to their episodes, you can feel a little bit about them, and then choose a coach that will work for you. So LaraJaneLayton.com, the BFF Coaching Network. All right, Alyssa, the information about you is in the show notes. So I know our friend's going to love you just like I have fallen in love with you over the last little bit. It's like, what is that self-care that I can do to really help me be at my best?
Yeah. So, Laura Jane, right before we were, hitting record, something that you said was that I think a lot of times we think of self-care as, going to a spa, getting a massage, getting our nails done. And it's true that it is a facet of it. And even going to the doctor and taking vitamins and supplements. And it's all very good and okay, but sometimes it's not really the whole picture of taking care of ourselves, right? It's an aspect of making sure that our emotional needs are met. It's setting and maintaining healthy boundaries. It's letting go of perfectionism. It's present moment awareness. And so the key to, I think, practicing self-care begins with tapping in, checking in, connecting with ourselves, and taking the time to really reflect on what is it that I need in order to keep going, because there's so much on our plates every single day. And a lot of the time, especially in our world, we're always looking ahead. We're looking ahead at what's next and how do I prepare and what do I need to do in order to get through that next thing and tomorrow. And in that, we tend to sometimes lose sight of what is right in front of us. What is our body telling us? What is our heart telling us? What are our emotions telling us? About what we need in order to move forward, in order to be our best selves, in order to be authentic to who we are and what we're capable of achieving in this life. And so what it comes down to is, taking that time to connect with ourselves. And I'm sure you have got questions about what does that actually look like?
You know what I was thinking while you're doing that is like, okay, if I have a headache,
Mhm.
I could take an aspirin right now.
Right.
And that might be the right self-care at the moment because I have so much on my plate. But that personal reflection, what happened just before I got the headache? What is the actual source of the headache? And being able to dial in, and is it something I could prevent? Maybe it's just stress and I haven't sat down and, shooken out the stress out of my body yet, or maybe it's something that triggered the headache. So maybe it's a food I avoid. So part of self-care is that reflection process of, hey, this one thing's not working in my life. To take better care of myself, I would prevent it. So thinking about how that happened, but sometimes just taking the aspirin to get you through the next 2 hours is self-care. It's just not deep. And so when do we cleanse that depth? How do we find those sources so we can actually prevent the issues?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly, Laura Jane. It's like self-care isn't waiting until we're sick. It isn't waiting until we're burnt out, right? Those are the moments that sometimes we're finally like, it's loud enough or blaring enough that, oh, wow, I haven't really slowed down in a while. So self-care can be more of something that we practice foundationally at a preventative level. And so it could be in the morning, taking a few extra minutes to yourself. It could be at night, slowing down a little bit earlier, disconnecting from technology and spending 10 minutes just to kind of appreciate maybe the silence or the fact that nobody's pulling at you or there isn't something due right now. Taking that time for a pause before you fall asleep for the next day. And it could also be, in the lunch breaks that we often don't take because I've got
Yeah.
to do, right? I've got too many meetings or someone else scheduled something on my calendar that I was unexpected or I just got a phone call. But making sure we have that very strict boundary for ourselves, right? We're younger and school tells us lunchtime or depending on our job, we might have to clock out at a certain time and, we have that designated hour maybe or half hour for lunch break. But depending on our job or as we move into our career and in our lives, or we're raising children or children getting older, if we're just a caretaker, maybe. The truth is that we don't have that set a time aside to take a pause, to check in, to make sure we're drinking enough water, to eat something. And so setting that boundary for ourselves, maybe even blocking it out on your calendar if, you work in corporate and your calendar is just up for grabs with the whole company, blocking out that time every day, even if it's just 30 minutes to do a quick like body scan, scan of how you're feeling emotionally. Where is your mind at when you do come to a pause? And what is it that my body, my inner self is trying to tell me about what I need? And how can I give that to myself? And it is on many levels. It's not just physically, it's mentally, it's emotionally, right? Maybe even energetically. I've been sitting in this chair for so long. I need to just get up. And whatever it tells you, like doing it. That's my favorite question to ask is what are you trying to tell me about what I need? This pain in my neck, this, a headache or pain in my low back, or even just, I feel like I haven't been able to catch my breath today. Taking that time just to breathe, really, you know?
Yeah, those little pains in our body to me are the check engine lights for
Mhm.
our bodies. Just like what is, check it out. Don't just keep letting it hurt and letting it hurt. You get a headache every morning. There's probably a reason beyond I just didn't sleep well or I had a quick neck. If you just get it once in a while, it's probably you didn't sleep well. So, what are those other balances in there? And remembering that, so much we look at self care as physical. That what is those emotional self care things or those spiritual self care things that I can do to really give me that inner strength to keep taking care of the physical?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I love that you referenced it as a check engine light, those little physical signs. Because it's actually a metaphor that I use for our emotions, is that our emotions are also cueing us in to what we need emotionally, what we need even spiritually in the moment to take care of ourselves. And so taking the time to reflect on what it is that I'm feeling emotionally, naming it or trying to describe it, or just asking that very same question, what are you trying to clue me into? Right? Like, and we've got all those sensors on our cars. We've got them everywhere. We've even got those apps on our phones that tell us like take a sip of water or you've only taken this amount of steps today, get moving. Um, and yet we don't always remember to do that for ourselves and shifting how we look at our emotional state from like this is bad or this is good versus why is this showing up for me right now? Why is this restlessness showing up or this physical pain that I'm having? And not labeling it or judging it. That's actually like the antithesis of self-care, right? Now we're just getting into like self-blaming or negative views. And it's like just using that as a little signal or a yellow light that, okay, let me slow down. What do I
Yeah.
need? You know?
And really, we've got to self reflect to figure it out. When is it turning on? When is it? And, what is your spiritual or
Mhm,
your emotional check engine lights? You
mhm.
know, do you feel kind of sad today? Or like I was telling my husband the other day, I feel mopey. I don't know why I feel mopey. I just don't have any bubble.
Mhm.
And it's like, how do those things happen? And I think the first part of self-care is knowing it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm mopey. That's okay. Sometimes we need that. It might not feel the best. We might not think it's the best, but look at it as a rainstorm outside. Look what great things it's doing for the earth. And sometimes these things that hit us emotionally are helping us to do that self reflect and to figure out what's going on. Like, what is it that turned my energy to low? What is it that even reflect on the good things? Like, oh my gosh, I had an amazing day today. What was it that I did? What is that fun thing that triggers the happiness? So to me, you're just really thinking through
Mhm,
like, where'd
mhm,
that come from? And if you don't get an answer, that's okay. It'll come when it's time to
mhm,
fix it.
mhm. Yep, yep, meeting yourself where you are. And I think that even, this conversation starts to even just delve right into like perfectionism in a way, right? If I'm feeling anything that isn't happiness or calm or contentment, then it's bad or I am wrong or I'm not good enough. When in reality it's like, well, what is happening energetically, emotionally that is, this other thing that doesn't feel so great is coming up and what can I do about it? And where does this expectation come from of what perfect looks like? That I am maybe not meeting it, or I need to make sure I maintain the goal of meeting perfect, meeting that sense of being perfect. Where is that coming from? Is it coming from work? Is it coming from society? Is it coming from a story of the past based on who I was raised to believe I should be as a woman, as a mother, as a, corporate executive working in the corporate world? Um, and in that reality, it's like thinking about, well, I'm doing what it is that I, was called to do, or I'm doing my best, and that's okay. And it's going to vary day to day. And that idea of perfect is not necessarily, it's an outsider's perspective of what perfect is versus me just being who I am and staying authentic to that inner voice by asking myself, what is it that I need? What is it that I need?
And, sometimes it's sitting in that thought,
Mhm.
allowing those things that we need to really process and to really um, be understood, just really feel it.
Mhm. Yeah. Instead of running from it, like again, we chase the happiness, we chase the peace, we chase the freedom. Because it feels good. And that's where perfection lies, right? And if I'm not meeting that, then that's a reflection of me. When in reality, like we all have this bucket that can run on low and then it affects everything, our mental clarity, our sense of energy that we bring to these stressful circumstances that are part of life, being human.
That's so true. I mean, when you talk about when you're empty, and it's like, when I'm empty, I trigger easier. When I'm
Mhm.
empty, I don't have that energy to really embrace life as it's being thrown at me because I get more in the control.
Mhm.
No, this is not going to hit me. And so giving yourself that self care of taking the moment to rejuvenate. It might it could be a nap. It could be 5 minutes in your car without all the noise from chatter from the office, it's that solitude sometimes is freeing, and sometimes it's going to lunch with somebody that you can just chat with and just everything's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
What is that self-care thing? We were talking about boundaries, and I'm thinking, yeah, I never had this thought before, but we already have every one of those boundaries. But our response to the boundary is what we really need to set. Next time George comes home drunk, I will do X. We already had the boundary, we didn't want him to do it. Now we're going to choose, instead of being mad and frustrated, how are we going to respond?
Mhm.
Or next time George comes in and starts yelling at me, I already know I don't like it. I already have the boundary. How am I going to respond to it to make it change? And it's like that thought process, that self-reflection is so huge for me to be prepared. If I know how I'm going to respond, I don't get hit with that. Ugh, you might get hit with it, but it doesn't keep getting worse.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And, a way that I often speak about or conceptualize clients truly honestly is I use a metaphor for a house. Um, you know, it's so easy to differentiate boundaries around like physical contact, right? Who we hug and who we shake hands with and so on and so forth, right? But if we think about boundaries as like we have them around our heart, we have them around our finances and what we decide to spend money on and don't spend money on, whether we give it away or keep it, and everybody's definition of what that looks like looks different. And we've got boundaries around our thoughts, right? And so something that I like to, I guess, even consider when it comes to boundaries is consider that you have this house, right? And you get to make this house whatever it look like, whatever it is that you want it to look like. And I'm talking about more of a figurative house, obviously, like something around your heart, around your body, right, at all times. And you get to say like what's inside this house, what color the paint colors are, how you feel when you walk in, and who's inside that house with you, what part of the house they get to be in, and how long they get to stay, right? There might be some people and some things that you wave to from the porch and you say, have a great day. And then there are some that you invite in for dinner and they eat, you have a great meal, and you say, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you being here, but it's time for me to go to bed and take care of myself. So we think about boundaries, right? In that same sense, yes, we're talking about people, but we're also talking about like our thoughts. We're talking about setting ourselves up for success so that, we can continue to function at our optimal level, and also respecting that there's going to be times that we're not going to be our best selves. And even then, what do I need in order to feel better, in order to take care of myself and show up and be able to keep those boundaries with maybe people in my life or around the expectations of what's put on me? Um, and so, yeah, if we're thinking about the house, right, we are inside the house. Our heart is inside the house. What do you want to surround yourself with? What do you need to surround yourself with? And who gets to be there with you?
And I like the way you're using the house metaphor, because there may be people in my life that I let freely roam through any room in my house.
Mhm.
And there's other people that only get to step on the front porch and just never come through. And I can invite them in and have dinner, but they're never going to go into my special quiet rooms, like or my game room, whatever it is. So we have different boundaries, or the doors are different keys that we've given people. You can come through this door, but nowhere else,
Mhm.
like, so it's like, I liked that because a boundary doesn't have to be the same response for everybody. And I hadn't thought through that either. So that's pretty, like, anytime somebody does this, well, there was a kid that said, "Hey, why are you fat?" Did I take offense from this kid saying it? No. But had an adult, I would have felt threatened. One was inquisitive, like, I don't know this. And another one's, I don't, feels more judgy, like, I'm judging you for this, you
Mhm.
know? And so, yeah, somebody already has the key. Somebody else gets shoved out.
Mhm.
It's okay. We don't have to discuss our whole lives with everybody. No, I know none of us do because we always have those hidden spots. But yeah, I might blow up and yell at one person for doing the exact same thing someone else got to pass on because
Mhm.
I feel different about them. Maybe that goes back to Stephen's Covey emotional bank account, where the more positive things that you've done, the more you can get away with doing something not quite so positive. But if you're always draining somebody, you don't get through that door.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and you're the, master of your kingdom in terms of your home, right? You get to decide again every detail of it, including what kind of behavior is like even allowed or acceptable in your home, right? And so in that essence, it's like we could practice this maybe with people even who do roam around our house and are allowed in our dresser drawer to borrow an outfit or look through our photo albums, but maybe on one particular day, there's a comment that hurt, or there's a sense of like having been, left behind or just even disrespected because no relationship or interaction is always going to be perfect and not everybody's always going to be their best selves. So what do we do in those scenarios, right? Well, we assert ourselves. We use our emotions. Again, what are my emotions telling me about what I need? Well, this frustration or annoyance or even anger, whatever to whatever degree, it's telling me that I went through something unfair, unjust, and I'm going to use that to stick up for myself and to say this is not okay. That's also self care, right? It's honoring your home, it's honoring your heart, it's honoring your body. And it looks like many different things. And we can only really identify what it is that we need by doing that tapping in. And if we do that in a curious manner rather than a judgmental manner, why can't I do this thing? Everybody else can do it. I should be able to do it, right? Any sort of shame like that, we're not going to find the keys even to our own home.
Shame is one of those emotions or feelings that I don't like. And I do everything I can to avoid it. And, like when we were little kids, anytime someone took your toy, you took your toy back from somebody or something happened, our parents made us say sorry. And sometimes, like, it was mine. I don't know why I'm saying sorry for me to protect my own things. As a kid, we didn't understand. And you get this confusing thing is say sorry, say sorry. I got so ingrained on that, I'd run into the wall and tell it sorry. You know, you just say this. And I started realizing I always kind of feel a little bit shameful. Like
Mhm.
I did something wrong. And so that was one of the first words I started working on getting rid of. Again,
Mhm.
I still say it because there's still time it's appropriate. But when I feel shame associated with it, it's like, no, I'm
Mhm.
not doing that. I might show up to a meeting late, but it's thank you for starting without me. It's not, oh, sorry, I'm late.
Yeah.
What is that way I can be? I'm present. I'm not
Mhm.
shameful. And yeah, I don't, that's one of those things I've worked a lot on is not feeling shame about things that are just me.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think shame stands in our way of being able to set those boundaries, of practicing self care, right? It's why I think sometimes the more stressed we are, the more fire is lit behind us, right? To like do the things and do them well. And, then we get burnt out. Um, granted, it's not the only driving force behind, the pressure maybe that we put on ourselves or even just allowing into ourselves from the external, from our jobs, from society, from our family. Perhaps it's fear too, right? That or anxiety about what's to come that tends to kind of get in the way. But I think a good little back pocket cue card for like when shame is showing up is when you hear in your mind or someone else even saying to you should, or I shouldn't, right? Should, that is shame, right? I should be ashamed. I'm not doing the right thing. I'm not doing it good enough. There's something wrong with how I did it. And you're right. Like, sorry for something which is appropriate is it's very different. It feels different. It's instead of it being punitive, it's oh my goodness, I did something that hurt you. And perhaps I didn't realize it, but thank you for telling me. And I'm sorry that I hurt you. But it's very different than, the sorry that over apologizing about, yeah, who I am and what I'm bringing to the table that day. It's very different. Um,
Right.
and so self-care around shame, I think, is what we're talking about is self-acceptance, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And not always easy to practice because we have these high expectations of who we need to be, who we should be. Should, there it is, shame, you know?
We're raised.
Yeah.
We are born, we learn how to be a baby. We learn that if we need something, we cry. If we um, want someone to hold us and interact with us, we smile.
Mhm.
Then we learn to be a toddler. We learn that falling on our butt's okay. We can get back up. And we learn to be a elementary school student, and you go and you sit and you interact and then you go home. And we learn all these things, but the one we don't get to learn or we don't have someone to teach us is adulthood.
Mm.
We you know, we now get to
Ew.
experiment and create our own adulthood. We have these things that say, "Oh, every adult needs to make money. Every adult needs to do this." Yeah, there's a lot of shoulds out there and all of, but who are you? And it's now your turn to tune in to you and choose. You
Mhm.
get to raise you as an adult, and no one else has to say, "Nope, the only way you're ever gonna get your diaper changed is if you cry."
Mhm.
You know, it's like we now don't need that. I don't have to change a diaper on me anymore. Well, I never changed my own. Let's say. But, we had help getting
Mhm.
through some of these stages, and we used some of the things we learned there. Like, if I smile, people like me.
Mhm.
Well, you don't always have to do that. You don't have to be liked. You don't have to be picked up. It's not survival anymore.
Mhm.
So, where do we go from here? How do we give ourselves permission to experiment, to look dumb to somebody else, but to know you're learning and growing? It's okay to be new at something. It's okay to try something for the first time and see if you like it. You watch people do yoga and you go, there is no friggin' way I'm ever going to be able to do that. But that's not what it's about.
Mhm.
You're looking at people that have been doing it forever, and there's so much yoga is so much broader than what we think of it, but it's a great self care routine because it allows yourself to integrate mind, body, and spirit instead
Mhm.
of just focus on one or the other.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I love talking about yoga, Laura Jean. So I'm happy that you brought it up because it is one of my just personal favorite self care practices. And I do speak to it often and how it kind of can show us a lot about ourselves and what we're capable of. And yeah, and I think what we're talking about, like even just going back to the first few things you said there is like it stems from self-acceptance. You're right that when we're younger, and it's quite interesting, how we get what we need is by crying, having our emotions. Right? So why aren't we allowed to do that as adults? Because it's not okay. We shouldn't. Right. But that's what they're there for. They're there to clue in our caretakers who teach us how to take care for ourselves um, over time that, oh, I need something. Here it is. I'm crying. I don't know what. And when we're young, we don't know. I think sometimes as we grow up, as we become adults, we still don't know. We just know that I need to look or appear or act or perform a certain way. But in order to do that, a human need is that we have to be fed, We have to be, feel safe. We have to feel like we belong somewhere. And so being liked, I think, really exceeds or performing well or all of those standards that we live by, actually, right? Um, it goes beyond what's on the surface. It often, like, the thing that connects us to each other is when someone does show up authentically. Maybe that day, yeah, I'm not my best self and I completely fall flat on my face and look silly or don't have my words. And because it humanizes each of us, like, oh, that's been me. I've been that. I could be that. And so someone else embracing that and just kind of like, this is who I am today can be the thing that makes someone else feel more comfortable and safe, right? It's almost like sharing a secret with somebody. They're going to be more open to sharing a secret back and being authentic themselves. And if we bring it back to like yoga as an opportunity for self care, that practice in and of itself, right? It requires us to have to slow down. It's tricky, right? But not necessarily for the reasons why we believe without really having maybe much practice in it. I'm not flexible enough. I can't do that. In reality, the only thing that is required of us when we go to yoga is to be on our mat. That's it. To show up and be present. And even when we're not present, it's quite interesting because we can use that as a tool to get curious. Where am I? Why am I thinking about work still? Okay, wait, hands on my mat, focus on my breath. Let me practice that skill that I'm trying to then incorporate in the rest of my life. And where can I choose something different right now instead of putting the pressure on myself? "Ugh, I'm doing yoga wrong. No, I'm doing it right because I'm looking at myself and how I'm showing up and how I'm talking to myself. And how do I want to relate to myself differently? Can I invite in some grace? Because is that what I need? Can I invite in some ease? Or is this a perfect opportunity to challenge myself to stay a little bit uncomfortable and see what I'm capable of, even if it's, scary, or even if there's this belief that I can't do it, right? It's a real life example for maybe an hour, 45 minutes to 75 minutes where we're actively practicing new skills in a safe, controlled, guided environment. Um, and if we're looking at yoga, it doesn't have to even necessarily really be practiced just on the mat. The practice of yoga is connecting with ourselves. It's getting curious with ourselves beyond these belief systems that we've learned about we are, but in who we are in our core authentically, aside from the stories that society or our family has made us believe about ourselves. And what can I do a little differently that is more aligned with who I am and what I want to see in my life?
You mentioned staying on the mat. It's like, okay, I went to a yoga class once and, well, I've gone to many, but this one time I didn't do anything the instructor even asked. I sat, did a few stretches, and just more meditated through the whole hour and self reflected because that's what I needed. But it was such a safe place to do that at. It wasn't like anybody was going to go, oh, she's just sitting there. What's wrong with her? Well, and if they did, I don't care. But, at the time, that's what I needed. And I loved it. Like, oh, I never thought that that would be okay. It's like I didn't worry about it because I knew the instructor really well. Um, so, yeah, give yourself permission to do it your way.
Mhm.
Find the environment that lets you do it your way because that's where you're going to shine. Because if it doesn't work, you're going to change it. You
Mhm.
know, this is experimenting. Create what works for you.
Mhm.
You don't have to do it like anybody else. And embracing that what works for you is, that's what I'm here. Give you permission to try. Give you permission to do whatever experimenting you want and be okay with it. It's okay. So I fell. So I looked funny. So I don't look like everybody else. You look like you.
Mhm.
And that is the most beautiful person in the world is you.
And I think the other thing is even just taking the step to do or go to yoga, to try it, is really admirable to begin with, right? And whatever level of practice you've gone, whether you've never gone to yoga or you've been going for years, right? Because no matter what, even if you love yoga, there's sometimes still those days where, oh, I don't want to go. I just want to stay home and I just want to brain rot or I just want to go to sleep or I want to just not go and get in the car and look for a spot, a parking spot. Whatever it is, getting there, going there after your whole full rest of your day and your week, it's an accomplishment sometimes, right? Especially if, I mean, 6 a.m. class practitioners, I'm always like, wow, I have so much respect for you. I cannot get somewhere. It's on a great day I can, but
Yeah.
it's a rarity, right? So I think just getting there, and especially if you've never gone and, facing something that's scary and trying something new deserves in and of itself so much respect. And, how can I give myself compassion even if I'm scared to try this thing because I don't look like everybody else or I can't do the thing or I believe I can't do this thing that's being asked of me.
The funny thing is nobody looks alike, so nobody looks like everybody else.
Yeah.
We may have similarities, we may have things that because we were raised the same, we interact or we have certain mannerisms, but nobody's are the same.
Mhm.
Even identical twins, they have different differences. They look the same, their physical bodies are the same, but they can change it. They can still be themselves. And so it's okay to be unique.
Mhm. Mhm. And the interesting part is like when we fall, right? Or in those moments where we don't meet that expectation of ourselves or of others, it's like it kind of gives other people permission to also like try something and potentially fall too. Or that if I've, made a mistake or I wasn't my best self, like this person might still accept me. It levels the playing field for all of us when one of us shows up authentically who we are.
Well, I like to try and remind people because authentic in who I am, what is that?
Hmm.
It's going to change every day. You may show up authentically one day, and the next day you show up completely different, but it's still authentic. It's what you're feeling at the moment that you need for you,
Right.
not what someone else is telling you. It's not what So every moment you change your authenticity, it's okay. It's just accepting yourself where you're at right now
Hmm.
and allowing us to make things that didn't feel right. It's not a mistake. It just didn't feel right or it didn't get the outcome that I wanted. I can do it again.
Hmm.
Self care is all about I love me enough that I'm okay with taking the right steps for me. Right steps for you may be having a massage every week. I don't want to be touched like that. I want to go out to dinner with friends once a week. What is your being that makes you feel good? And those are the things we want to embrace. And self care is learning the things we don't like also. So it's like really embracing all of the parts of you and knowing that they're all changing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And, when we think about self care in that lens, that's exactly what it is, right? It's a matter of knowing that we are not always going to need and want and show up the same way every single day for the rest of our lives. Then we'd never be growing. Then we'd still be little, infants and just haven't progressed and grown up. So, when I think of authenticity, right, it's a matter of meeting ourselves where we are and whatever sense of, you know, yeah, meeting ourselves where we are and whatever sense of what shows up, like that's being authentic. That's not hiding or masking or, shaming or comparing or saying, I need to be better, right? showing up authentically to who we are means dropping all of those stories, that narrative, that negative belief system, and saying, okay, this is me today, right now. And this is what I need today, right now.
And when you don't like what just happened about you get to change it.
Hmm.
Like, oh my gosh, I just blew up at somebody. What was that trigger? And I'm choosing not to do that again. That's my choice.
Hmm.
Or maybe that felt so good. Maybe I need to go figure out where to yell in a more constructive place. I know my sister says, and then this is years, so I don't know if she still does it, but she'd get in her car and she'd just yell. So the top of her voice. Like, okay. I'd never have had so much pressure in me that just yelling was gonna do it. Yeah, I remember one time kinda like throwing the plates at the wall and busting them. That all sounds fun and great. Guess what? You get to clean it up. You're an adult. And the cleanup part is not great. So
Right.
go to the Wreck-It room to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And honestly, I think that's a really good indication, right? If you're out there and that is your release, it's not necessarily bad or wrong, but how can we get curious about it? How much anger has been bottled up, right? And how can I release it bit by bit when it does, even just start to happen? Where's my yellow light around this emotion? Why do I feel like I need to bottle it up? I don't. What is this anger telling me? I went through something unfair. That wasn't cool. Not okay. Where can we assert that? I matter. It shouldn't happen. I'm not going to put up with it. It's not okay. Right? That in and of itself is practicing self love and self compassion. So,
It is, but also knowing I can't control what comes to me,
right.
but I can control how I respond to it. And I may say that's not fair, or that's not nice, or that's not kind, but can't not control how someone's
Mhm.
going to throw something at me. So I also need to be ready to respond. And maybe I like to yell and scream and hoot and holler when someone triggers that one button. Maybe I don't.
Mhm.
It's you that gets to pick.
Mhm.
And what is your response? What makes you feel the best in your response? It's not about the other person. Does it feel really good to just destroy the person's ego and go, you dumb idiot, you're da 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 da? Da"? I never feel good doing that.
Mhm.
And so if you do, fine. Just don't come do it to me or I might not be your friend. It's like, where is that? If it feels good, you need to be you, but you're
Mhm.
going to attract the people that like that behavior. And who do you want around you? And
Mhm.
and if you love it, go for it. I have a brother that him and his girlfriend, they love to scream at each other, and that breaks my heart. But that's them. And they're happy and they do life. But that releases something and they have all these major passions and it's okay. It works. If it works for you, do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if that's your release, right, going into your car and, letting it out. I mean, we do teach little kids, like, punch a pillow. Like, that energy has to go somewhere, right? I don't know about it being in a relationship, right? I think it's more for us to manage our own anger within ourselves and finding our own release individually, because I think certain things like that can really deteriorate the sense of trust, right? I have to yell in order to be.
Not healthy for me,
No.
but
Yeah.
I can't tell somebody else whether it's healthy or not for them. I mean,
Right.
I can say science shows or statistics
Yeah.
show this is
Right.
not healthy.
Hmm. Right. Is there a better way? Right? Is there a better way or a more effective, let's put it that way, a more effective way to respond to this anger, right? Is it ultimately giving me the result that I want or keeping me in this cycle, right? And how much do I love
Yep.
this cycle?
And you and I want to keep increasing ourselves. We want to be better. We want to learn more about ourselves and move through these things that we don't feel is right. Some people don't.
Mhm.
That's okay. I can't make you what is the saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right.
I can show you, but it's up to you to pick your path and to
Right.
do you.
Right. And so I guess a perfect example of like how do I practice, self-care, right? If I am the sister, right? Or if I am the sister-in-law or just the outsider to this dynamic of like seeing that kind of relational pattern, right? How do I cope with that, take care of it myself, right? And maybe it's not take care of myself, but and maybe it's not exactly that kind of thing, but perhaps there's you're out there and you have a family dynamic that just really pulls at every resource that it could also cause you to be reactive, right? Or pull you into this negative space. We don't have control over how somebody else responds, but we can take care of ourselves, right? We've got that house around us at all times. And we get to say, like, who comes in and what comes in and how long it gets to stay and what we're going to do with it once it's there. Um, so, relinquishing a certain amount of responsibility from things outside of us and asking ourselves, like, what do I want to do with this part of it? You know? Um, that we're not so much in control of the outcome or what comes our way, but how do I feel about it and what do I need to move beyond it? What do I want to see in my life?
Yes. And I know that that was probably a bad example because I don't condone it, but I, if it works, it works, and I just know that, no, I don't know. I assume that it will be taught in a different way in another life cycle.
Yeah, I mean, and if it's one of those things, right? Like if you're out there and like certain methods are not exactly, sitting right with you, right? For example, if you're in a certain dynamic, struggling with having a release that you're completely happy with, right? Here's the alternative is that there are resources out there that can help, you know? Because we're not necessarily taught sometimes how to release those emotions and what to do with them.
We're not,
Yeah.
but we get to learn anyway.
Yeah.
And sometimes it may not feel the best, or it may be the only way we know how. And then we haven't learned or tried another way. So, so if we were to wrap up, I mean, we started talking about self care, and I think everything we've talked about points back to self care. How
Mm.
do I take care of myself? Do I set a boundary? Am I self compassionate enough? Allow myself to fall down and get back up? Am I too worried about being perfect, knowing that things change and perfect today is not perfect tomorrow? Are we being mindful, living today instead of 10 years in the future? Where is everything, or 10 years in the past? I think more the mindful issues that so many people have are holding on to the past. And how do we move forward? What is it through all these tools that will bring us that peace? And so I think everything we've talked about today kind of pushes us to that, still points into what is self care and how is it going to help us. And I think boiling it right down is being your own best friend. When you fall down, you talk positive. Let's get up, let's keep going. We can do this. When you need a rest, you say, it's fine. Go have a rest. It's okay. Self care is taking care of yourself, being your own best friend, and allowing the things that didn't feel right to happen and to learn from.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
The most important part of self care is not draining your bucket. You have one bucket of energy and you can fill it up every morning. You can fill it because it's going to drain, but we don't need to add holes to all these other spots for it to drain even faster. So it's like, here's your bucket of energy, keep it full.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And what can I do to continue to fill it?
Yeah. And I think just having that peace that I'm moving, I'm learning that this is a crappy day, but I learned. And
Mhm.
not that you have to learn something every day. My kids would come home from school, and instead of asking them what they learned, because that's 7 classes and all sorts of stuff to think through. It's like, did anything make you smile today? Like just what it was the warm, fuzzy part of your day that you can reflect on and go, yes, it was a good day.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, how about telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how our friend could get a hold of you, and what's that one thing we're going to do this week to just try a little bit extra self care?
Yeah. Okay. So my name again is Alyssa Scarano. I'm a licensed professional counselor, national certified counselor. I'm also a registered yoga teacher. And I really enjoy helping people, connect with themselves so that they can have more fulfilling relationships with other people. And through my group practice, we offer virtual mental health counseling services. And you can find us online at www.collective-therapy.com. We've got a lot of resources to help clients in very different levels, different price points, and different options. And we would love to hear from anybody who would like or need some help potentially. And as far as taking care of ourselves, perhaps it's this week, it's just setting a few minutes before you go to bed to check in, at night. How am I feeling physically? What does my body need? Do I need a stretch? How am I feeling emotionally right now at the end of the day? And what do I need mentally to start and quiet the chatter of the mind? And how can I give myself those things before tomorrow so that I'm fully recharged and maybe potentially my day looks a little differently tomorrow.
And it's going to. It's going to look a little different and you get to learn again. And that's what is so much fun about life is taking each day as a new opportunity. It's a new day.
Mhm.
Day you wake up, it's a new day and you get to choose. So thank you so much for joining us. This has been fun.
Yeah.
I love talking about self-care, and I know it's just kind of cliche in its word, but it's so important. It's so important, or we don't survive. We eat. That's self-care. We breathe. That's self-care. But we can
Mhm.
go even deeper. What is it that I learned today? So thank you so much for joining. Friend, I'm not a licensed medical or mental professional. We're here for entertainment. Follow your doctors and your therapist's advice. So thank you and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.